monster Mahomes game to win.
No. And they better not be relying on it. That is not on the board this weekend. I shouldn't say that. That's disrespectful to Patrick. That is not the plan should not be press the Mahomes button a bunch of times, not when Thursday's practice report is out. We are still without our starting right guard and our starting right tackle, and the starting left tackle just got put on IR. So if you are going to be without 3/5 of your starting offensive line, and one of the two guys who is still there is your replacement left guard, the guy who stepped in who's done a good job, Kingsley, but the guy who wasn't even Tooney's position from last year. So it's as far as your ardent offensive line, it's just Creed Humphrey. That's been there year over year, the center. The plan cannot be drop Patrick back 40 times and have him make magic. It simply can't be. He'll get hurt. He doesn't you cannot ask him to throw your way out of this. What the Chiefs need in this game is for the Kansas City Chiefs defense to look anything like the Kansas City Chiefs defense has looked the previous 3 years to this one against an offense that for a year and a half now has been middling at best. And ask Patrick to do 3 or 4 awesome things in high leverage moments. But I would feel differently if I felt he was going to have time.
Sure.
If that offensive line injury report does not change, it to me would be foolish if the game plan is pass heavy. It's got to, even if they are unproductive runs, it's got to be a lot of running the football and a lot of quick stuff. But they have not only a great pass rush, a great secondary. So that quick stuff is going to be hard to come by as well. This has to be a Chiefs defense game at Arrowhead, loud at night, cold weather. That's what it's got to be.
Yeah, I do tend to agree. Look, a monster game doesn't have to happen. He had a monster game last week, and they lost to Dallas.
Yeah.
All right. They are not synonymous. He doesn't have to do that for them to win. And I agree with Nick, because he doesn't need a monster game because Houston's offense is not going to have a monster game. Even if the Chiefs' defense isn't bad, Houston's just not a good offense.
Correct.
They average 21 points a game. C.J. Stroud has not been the same guy since he was as a rookie for now a year and a half.
His first couple games his second year until the lecture that led to the losing.
I don't know. I don't want to say there's truth in that, but that did seem to be a turning point. But whatever the case, the defense for the Chiefs has to carry the day. Now, Mahomes just has to be good. No, not a lot of turnovers, if any. Make a few big plays. I think they're going to have to try the quick passing game, Nick, because I don't think they're going to be able to run that well against them. You know, the running game surprisingly has been good the last couple of weeks, but I don't think they're going to be able to run that well against Houston. And to your point, with 3 offensive linemen out, potentially. We know Josh Simmons is out. Houston has the second best pass rush in the league. They're the only team with 2 guys with 10 or more sacks.
You can't double team just one guy.
Yeah, I mean, they are going, and they played the Chiefs tough last year in the playoffs, even though they lost. That was, they gave them a little bit of a game more than.
Let's be unequivocal about this. They have not. The offensive operation of the Houston Texans this season has been, to put it mildly, a profound and persistent struggle. A state of affairs that has persisted even amidst their ability to occasionally pull out a victory. I sincerely doubt there exists a credible observer who genuinely believed the Houston Texans possessed any realistic probability of defeating the Kansas City Chiefs in a playoff scenario. I personally broadcast that matchup live, and witnessing the Texans' offensive unit attempt to function was frankly a difficult and disjointed viewing experience. The fundamental reality, and this is the critical point, is that the Houston Texans are saddled with an offensive line that is categorically deficient. In fact, its performance is significantly worse than that of the much-maligned Kansas City Chiefs offensive line by a substantial degree. The current metrics for Houston are damning. A 56% pass block win rate and the absolute league worst ranking in run block win rate. Let that sink in. Therefore, if this Kansas City Chiefs defensive unit, with all its talent and schematic complexity, proves incapable of capitalizing on this glaring vulnerability, of exploiting what is arguably the first or second worst offensive line in the entire NFL, particularly from a run-blocking perspective, and then compounding that with its evident pass-blocking frailties, then we are discussing a defensive group with profound systemic issues. This represents a serious, perhaps even crippling problem for Kansas City's championship aspirations. Consequently, the prescription for a Chiefs victory in this context does not necessitate a spectacular, heroic performance from Patrick Mahomes. It does not demand a display of otherworldly talent in high-leverage moments. The requirement is far more fundamental. Avoid catastrophic failure. Simply do not be the primary reason for a loss. Refrain from turning the football over. Do not gift the opponent a pick six. Do not miss a wide-open receiver by several yards on a critical down. That is the essential baseline expectation being discussed here. Thus, this impending contest is not, at its core, a narrative about Patrick Mahomes. It is far more centrally a referendum on the Kansas City Chiefs' defense and its imperative to execute its duties competently against a Houston Texans offense that has demonstrably faltered. Examining their production through traditional lenses like points per game or passing yardage is complicated by the quarterback carousel involving C.J. Stroud, Davis Mills, and others, which obscures a clear evaluation. Having watched them compete against teams like the Indianapolis Colts, the overarching impression is one of fundamental dysfunction. For anyone who has taken the time to watch Texans games this season, and I suspect many have not, the sensation is unmistakable. Something is palpably incorrect with this offense. Even a casual viewer with limited technical knowledge could observe the operation and feel a sense of pervasive discomfort, an intuitive sense that the unit is not functioning as a coherent whole. If the Kansas City Chiefs' defense cannot take decisive advantage of such an apparent weakness, then the concerns regarding that unit are legitimate and severe. Personally, I would be genuinely taken aback if the Chiefs were to lose this game to the Texans. I will, however, acknowledge a narrow pathway to a Houston victory, a scenario where their defense delivers an utterly dominant, suffocating performance reminiscent of their outing against the Philadelphia Eagles, or perhaps their showing against Tampa Bay. A game where the Chiefs' offensive front is completely overwhelmed, providing Mahomes with no viable escape routes, no functional passing lanes, and no time to operate, similar to the pressure they inflicted on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. I have no doubt Andy Reid and his staff are meticulously studying that specific Bills-Texans film. Barring such an extraordinary defensive tour de force from Houston, where the struggle is so extreme, it defies normal adjustment, I would be profoundly surprised by a Chiefs defeat. If the Texans were to win this game under more conventional circumstances, it would fundamentally alter my perception of the Kansas City Chiefs. I have consistently granted them the benefit of the doubt, aligned with the perspective that, should they secure a playoff berth, they remain the most perilous opponent for any team, a sentiment echoed by many analysts. While I may not declare that belief with absolute chest-thumping conviction, I have maintained that no sensible contender is eager to face the Chiefs in January. However, a loss here, particularly if C.J. Stroud and the Houston offense manage to look competent, scoring in the range of 21 to 24 points while the Texans' defense holds Kansas City to a low total, would force a drastic reassessment. It would indicate that this Chiefs team has regressed significantly beyond what can be explained by early season injuries, suspensions, or offensive line shuffling. It would suggest we are being collectively misled by the reputation of Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the rest. They would then firmly occupy the same perplexing category as other underperforming elites: the Philadelphia Eagles, the Detroit Lions, the Buffalo Bills, and the Baltimore Ravens. These are teams that, in name and roster composition, suggest one thing, but whose on-field product consistently suggests another. They possess the historical pedigree and individual talent to reach the sport's highest peaks, yet something is fundamentally misaligned. The discrepancy between expectation and reality creates a cognitive dissonance, where observers can be blinded by past accomplishments and star power. We see this when analysts repeatedly cite the Eagles or Lions' offensive lines as elite based on last year's performance, ignoring their clear regression this season. We see it with the assumption that the Ravens will automatically revert to dominance upon a key player's return. A Chiefs loss to this Texans team would cement them in this group of flawed giants. The argument that the Chiefs were already in this tier might hold, but I had personally delayed that judgment. Such a result would make it inescapable. My perception of their playoff viability would shift from cautious respect to genuine skepticism. Prior to this game, despite their struggles, I would have argued that dismissing the Chiefs' chances against any AFC opponent, Denver, Buffalo, Baltimore, Jacksonville, New England, in the postseason would be imprudent and biased. Even in a hypothetical rematch with the Broncos, who deserve full credit for their earlier win, the nature of football dictates that the outcome could easily swing the other way. To declare the Chiefs have no chance in any playoff setting would be an extreme overreaction. However, a loss to Houston would recalibrate that calculus. If they were to subsequently reach the playoffs, the safer analytical bet might then lean toward their opponent, a reversal of the traditional dynamic surrounding Kansas City. This makes the upcoming matchup fascinating, precisely because of the Texans' paradoxical construction. A formidable defense paired with a broken offense, the sporadic availability of C.J. Stroud, and the disjointed performances under Davis Mills. The context of Sunday Night Football, in the cold, with the Chiefs facing a virtual must-win situation for their divisional hopes, adds immense pressure. Conversely, for Houston, this game is monumental. A victory propels them firmly into the division race and dramatically improves their wildcard positioning, granting them critical tiebreakers over teams like the Bills and the Chiefs themselves. The psychological impact cannot be overstated. Defeating Mahomes and Reed at Arrowhead on a national stage would inject that Texans locker room with an incalculable surge of belief and momentum, reinforcing the idea that a deep postseason run is attainable. Therefore, while this game may not have been anticipated to carry such weight based on preseason projections, it has evolved into a compelling clash of desperate circumstances. The potential outcomes are binary and stark. I can absolutely envision a scenario where the Texans' offense is completely inert. When an offensive unit is simply not proficient, middling, as some have described, it possesses the capacity to single-handedly sabotage a game. The Chiefs' requirement for victory could be modest. A handful of successful offensive drives, capitalizing on one or two turnovers forced by their defense, and the game could spiral out of reach for Houston by halftime. A 21-0 deficit, regardless of the quality of the Texans' defense, is often an insurmountable hole, a dynamic we've witnessed in several Cleveland Browns games this season. This leaves the door open for a decisive, perhaps even lopsided, Kansas City victory. That said, the presence of an elite defense, like Houston's, does provide a foundational resilience that is frequently underestimated. It keeps games within reach, even when the offense sputters. So, while the possibility of a Chiefs blowout exists, the Texans' defensive prowess ensures they are never truly out of a contest. In real time, I am attempting to weigh these contrasting factors and pinpoint the most probable outcome. Frankly, I do not possess a definitive answer at this moment. The volatility of Houston's offense versus the inconsistent execution of Kansas City's defense creates a genuine unpredictability. We will all find out together at 8:20 Eastern Standard Time, 7:20 in Kansas City. Texans versus Chiefs. A monster game with immense implications for Mahomes' legacy and the Chiefs' season. We shall see. But those are my elaborated thoughts. I am absolutely eager to hear yours. What is your analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs heading into this critical juncture? Is a monumental performance from Patrick Mahomes an essential ingredient for victory, or can the defense and a mistake-free offensive approach suffice? Do you believe they will secure this win? Please share your forecasts and reasoning in the comments section below. I read every single comment. Whether you find yourself in full agreement or total opposition with my perspective, let's engage in a passionate, substantive debate. Ultimately, let's enjoy the collective experience of dissecting this high-stakes matchup. Please consider subscribing. We are diligently cultivating a vibrant, insightful community here, and I would be profoundly thrilled to have you join. The aim is to foster a connected, intelligent space we are all excited to be a part of, and I believe we are making significant progress toward that goal. Furthermore, if you could take a moment to give this video a thumbs up, it genuinely assists with visibility and organically supports the channel's growth. Thank you so much for your valuable time and engagement. I look forward to connecting with you next time.